Pass interference.
Running toward the right sideline. Heaves it deep downfield for Steve Smith Sr.
No!
He catches it.
No!
He's running at the 15-yard line. There's a penalty flag down. He runs into the end zone for an 80-yard touchdown. Let's see if it's on Steve Smith.
Yeah.
It is. It's coming back.
Or no pass interference.
He heaves it deep, looking for Steve Smith Sr. He makes the catch at the 20, spins free, 15, flag is down, 10, 5, touchdown Ravens! Steve Smith from Joe Flacco for 80 yards.
No!
But they're going to call it offensive interference. You've got to be kidding me.
Nope, we're not kidding you, Bengals fans. It was offensive pass interference. I'm sure we'll be discussing the flags tonight here on Inside the Jungle, as well as the left-handed throw, as well as Vontaze Burfict and A.J. Green, and all things Day, all things Bengals right here at CincyJungle.com. Glad everybody could join us. I'm Nick Superling, hanging out this week. We're down a guy, understandably so. Mickey not joining us this week due to Game 7 of the World Series. So Scott Mantel, what's up, dude?
What's happening, Nick?
It's a win. Wednesday night. And yeah, you're right, a win, which is nice.
Much better than the tie and the loss.
And a blowout loss. That's for sure. AC over on the left coast. What's up, man?
Such a bummer that Mickey couldn't join us tonight after a win. I mean, it's been a month since they've won a game, and he couldn't join us tonight, so that's a bummer. But I know that game is important to him, so I hope he's having fun. Good chatting with you guys, as always. And I think we're going to have a little bit more of a positive tone tonight than we have been over the past few weeks, so I'm looking forward to that.
It does feel like it's been a while. When you consider that they hadn't won, you're right, Anthony, in a month. The bye weeks, you throw the bye week in there, and you throw the kind of that slide with the blowout loss to New England, a tie, and just glad that they won, and they're 2-0 in the division. They swept Baltimore for the first time since 2009, which is fantastic. There's a lot to discuss as far as this game goes. A lot of injuries, a lot of questionable play, a lot of just kind of scratching your head moments on Sunday. I'll start with you, Anthony. Give us your best and worst for Sunday. When obviously the Bengals beat the Ravens.
Oh boy, there's so many things to choose from. I'm going to say there's a couple of best things. Number one is just this series in general. Since Marvin Lewis has taken control of the team, I wrote a post on Cincy Jungle this week talking about just how crazy so many of these games have been. They've come down to the final quarter, more or less, in a lot of these games. So as a lot of other matchups between these two have been, it's been quite exciting. This game was quite exciting. So that in itself, kind of the history of this matchup is kind of a best. That nice fourth quarter drive led by Andy Dalton after a couple of turnovers that he let go of was a nice thing. And then I know we're going to talk about the penalty, but I do think that was the correct call. It's a little bit controversial, but there's a lot of reasons why I think that. So that's those are some of my best. Are we doing worst too, Nick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. My worst, I'm gonna have to say Vontaze Burfict. He looked like he was playing a little tentative at times because of the injuries, and then he apparently tweaked his knee. We'll probably talk about that more as the show goes on, but. He was one of the things that was the worst. The running game didn't look very good, but you didn't expect it really to get going against that Ravens defense. So those are two of my worst.
Solid choices, AC. How about you, Scott?
I have to go with the best being the drive, the game-winning drive. Even though they gave up the lead, to see them come back the way they were able to come back, the offense as a whole putting together that drive, and Andy Dalton in particular putting together that drive, even though the game may not have been pretty, to see them put together a drive like that when it's needed is always good to see, regardless of how pretty or ugly the game is. The worst, well, I guess it had to be Vontaze Burfict being injured again. This defense, they haven't had Burfict really all year long, and it's just not the same defense without him. So to have him out 2 more weeks is not good.
I think we jinxed this team when we had the debate who's more important, AJ or Vontaze. We should have never even brought that up over the summer, guys.
It's like the Madden cover.
Yeah.
Or when the Bengals seem to ink a guy to a new contract, it seems to happen. I mean, I think I talked about this on last week's show. The team has just had some terrible luck on guys getting hurt after signing big contract extensions, some of their big name guys. So they've won games without Green and Burfict both in the lineup, and they've lost games without them in the lineup. So we'll have to see going forward.
If I had to give a best for Sunday, I'll go with the fact, and probably everybody's going to say is that drive to lead them down the field and take the lead was big. He had 2 consecutive turnovers on back-to-back plays, and to be able to just kind of put that out of your mind and do what you needed to do, it got everybody involved. Greg Little got involved. Everybody was involved. I was a little disappointed that Jeremy Hill couldn't run it in there from a yard out. You might want to block Haloti Ngata. That's just a suggestion. I don't know. You might want to do that. But to see him sneak it in from that was quite a long sneak on 4th down was impressive. And so if I have to give a best, that's my choice. Again, considering the back-to-back turnovers, to be able to just kind of get that out of your mind and do what you needed to do to move the team down the field. I was impressed with that. My worst got to be, dude, tuck the ball. You don't need to be throwing it left-handed. That's amateurish. Come on, you're channeling your inner Gus Frerotte. What? I mean, I don't. That's so unlike Andy Dalton. But then again, how many of us are really surprised?
Not me.
So let's talk about the main talking point. Which, by the way, that flag and that play totally. I think Andy Dalton's very thankful because the talk and discussion after the game was about that play rather than Mr. Gus Frerotte himself trying to throw it left-handed. So, I will fully admit this. Immediately after the game on Sunday during the post-game show, I immediately thought that George Iloka flopped. I thought after seeing some very, very brief replays during the game, I was like, wow, we were bailed out by the referees. Now, after I had a chance to publish the show and kind of step away and finally see some replays from some other angles, I will fully admit I think it was the correct call. Do I think it was very touchy? Sure. I've seen worse, but kudos to the officials for throwing the flag because you're right. Defensive guys all the time get penalized for ticky-tack fouls, and so for the offensive guy to finally get something thrown and called was refreshing, and I'm very thankful that the Bengals lucked out. Your take initially, Anthony, when you saw the play?
Well, when it happened, I started hearkening back to the old Brandon Stokely play from 2009 in Week 1. That reminded me a lot of that one, unfortunately. Luckily, I saw the laundry on the field and kind of knew something big was going to happen there. As you looked at it and as I looked at it, Steve Smith had Iloka's collar of his jersey at one point, let that go, and then kind of got a little push-off right after that. So to me, if you look at the rule and how you should call that play, that is a penalty. That is offensive pass interference. Was it absolutely blatant where his arm was fully extended and shoving the guy to the ground? No. But he did have a push-off, and he did have the defender's collar of his jersey at one point. So I think that they probably would have been, it's one of those borderline plays where you make the call, it's right. You don't make the call, it's probably right. But as I looked through, a lot of different published things about that play, 2 of the major network referee or officiating analysts, Mike Carey, who's a former referee, and Mike Pereira, who's the former head of refereeing, both said it was the correct call. As Greg Gumbel and I believe it was Trent Green were calling the game, I think they both, after they saw the replay, said it was the correct call. So I think initially you looked at it and you go, whoa, that's a little ticky-tack. But then as you kind of digested it a little bit, you realize that was the correct call, at least from my opinion.
Trent Green, Scott, even as they watched more and more replays, kind of had the opinion that Iloka may have flopped a little bit, but it was the correct call. Did you? When you first saw it, did you think it was OPI?
Well, I will say I was a bit surprised they called it. At real time, I didn't really notice it at all. I simply thought it was a touchdown, and if anything, I thought maybe they were calling defensive pass interference just because they so rarely call the offensive pass interference. But as I look at it, I've heard some arguments go both ways this week, but I'm of the opinion that it was the right call, and here's why I say that. If that is the reverse situation, if Steve Smith is the guy that goes down, they're 100% calling that defensive pass interference, no ands if buts about it. So Steve Smith has made a living out of pushing off. We look at week 1 on his long touchdown where he didn't get called for the offensive face mask, where he grabbed Adam Jones by the face mask and drug him down. So I kind of think it's about time Steve Smith got called for pushing off like he tends to do. The other thing about that call is George Iocca played that well. He got to the point where the ball was, he turned around, and the rules are once the defender locates the football, both players have the same right to that football. So neither player is allowed to gain an advantage by pushing or shoving the other player when they both have the right to the football, and Steve Smith clearly did that on that play. So while it may be slightly ticky-tacky, while I am surprised they called it, I 100% think that's the right call.
I think it was the right call in the end. I think what I'm more disappointed in is the fact that our safety looked so unathletic on that play. That ball should have been intercepted. That ball hung up there for forever, and he fell over so easily. Like, he was just so clumsy that he couldn't stay on his feet, and so he was. That's why I thought to an extent he was bailed out by the referee. I think he was already kind of off balance, and Steve Smith, though he did push him, I think that's why he went down so easily. I don't think it was a flop. I don't think he intentionally said, I'm going to go down here, like taking a charge in the NBA. But I think he was just, for whatever reason, his feet kind of got tangled underneath him, and he was already off balance. And then you add that to the push to the equation, Anthony, and I guess that's what's so disappointing is that why can't we have an athletic ball-hawking safety back there to go back there and make a play? And even after the catch is made, make a tackle.
Yeah, you saw guys running into each other after Steve Smith caught that football, which was just mind-boggling. But Iocca is an athletic guy. He does make some plays, but one knock that I've seen in his short career is, he's made a couple of interceptions here and there, and he's laid the wood on some guys, but he has had, especially in 2013, he has had a lot of interception opportunities bounce right off of his hands, or had an opportunity to make a relatively easy play on a interception type of play, and he didn't make that play. This is kind of one of those instances where you look at it and you go, man, this shouldn't have even got to that point, as you said, Nick. And side note, what's really irritating about Joe Flacco and the Ravens. Joe Flacco has a big arm. I think we all know that. But how many times have we seen Joe Flacco kind of do the little Ben Roethlisberger thing where he rolls around a little bit and he just lofts one up to one of his guys, and somehow a defender ends up making a poor play on it and they catch the ball? I mean, Steve Smith a couple of weeks ago, he got one off a ricochet. You go back to the, I believe it was the Super Bowl run of theirs a couple of years ago against Denver in Denver. There was a poor play by the safety there that ended up taking that game further, and they ended up winning. These types of plays seem to just always fall the Ravens' way, and it's kind of a backyard football type of play, for lack of better words, but it's nice to see that just him flinging one up, and it didn't work out for them as it usually does, because that was kind of on a wing and a prayer, as you saw.
What goes unnoticed and goes undiscussed really about that play is the fact that there was no flag thrown at the line of scrimmage for holding, and we clearly see in the replays Robert Geathers being held, Scott. So even if that ball is completed and the Bengals get screwed as far as the score goes, they've got some beeps as well, because the officiating on the day, as in general, was just horrendous.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that over the year, or over the entire year. I think the officiating's been not the best, we'll say, and especially when it comes to these plays down the field, whether it be called on the offense or the defense. And I tweeted about this a couple times throughout the week. It actually is getting a little frustrating to watch NFL games now, because it seems like every play no matter what happens, you're looking for a flag as opposed to watching the game. It's like you expect a flag on every incompletion, and the refs are kind of giving us that, where there's just so many flags. It gets to the point where it's kind of frustrating to watch. So, I don't know. Maybe it's better they let them play, but I'm glad they called that one. That's for sure.
Yeah. The Bengals were the beneficiary of the flag, which, again, I agree. After my initial statements on Sunday in the post-game show, I have kind of I'm backtracking a little bit, and I agree that it was the correct call.
But Nick, I will say what's concerning about that is how does it get to that point? I mean, how is it that play is even that close? That's the second time now against the Ravens that somehow Steve Smith has gotten behind or forgotten about by this defensive secondary. And, I know it's a couple of teams ago, but like Anthony mentioned, you go back to that Denver game, how does this team let guys get behind them in that situation?
Yeah, that is a great point. And believe it or not, the real discussion we should be having, Scott, is this game was not that close, yet the 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter is what made it a ball game. Let's talk about the play of Andy Dalton. I know he led them down the field to take the lead, but I mean trying to throw the ball left hand. I'm at a loss for words. I don't even know how I can defend what he did.
You can't. It's inexcusable, especially when you're milking a lead. They actually were moving the ball at that point to really take a commanding lead. Let me say this, and I caught a lot of flack this week because I do a good, bad, and ugly post after every game talking about all the facets of the Bengals play throughout the course of a game. And on good, I had basically Andy Dalton through 3+ quarters. Through 3 quarters, and then the very end of the fourth, and then basically a good chunk of the fourth quarter, Andy Dalton did not play well. There were 2 turnovers. One could say, well, yeah, that interception was actually kind of on Sanu, but that's a real tight window. Maybe you don't throw that ball in a very tight game at home when you're milking a lead. Maybe you kind of hold off, maybe make a safer throw it out of bounds. I don't know. So that's one play. The fumble play, Nick, you're talking about, I don't know if it looked like he kind of tried to switch the ball into the other hand so that the defender that was tackling him wouldn't strip it out of that one hand because he had a good reach around that right arm. But then you did see him kind of wind up to try and get it somewhere. I don't know what he was doing, which was just idiotic. And then there's one play that a lot of people aren't pointing out. There was the missed touchdown throw that he had Greg Little wide open, streaking down the sideline that would have put the game well out of reach at that point. And we wouldn't even really probably be talking about any of this stuff as such a big deal late in the game. So there was just I think about 3 consecutive series that Andy Dalton did 3 things that were just not good and could have cost the team the game. But as he's prone to do, he shakes off mistakes. He puts the team on his back at a critical moment, and he usually comes through and leads them on a good drive, which he did late in the game.
Well, even if the throw was there, AC, we don't even know if that's caught.
True.
So I think that's why a lot of people are kind of dismissing that one. And it isn't discussed. But you're right. He did have an open receiver for 6. I mean, easily. You and I, we were actually tweeting back and forth about that play during the game. So, yeah, I agree with you there. But Scott, I mean, this game wasn't all that close, yet the Bengals somehow shot themselves in the foot just enough to make it a game. Just like the first game.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to fill in for Mickey on this one, being the Andy Dalton apologist. I'm not sure. I think he was switching the ball to his left hand. Either way, that was a poor decision, whether he was trying to throw it or switch it to the left hand. But I'm going to go back to the beginning of that play in that Andrew Whitworth. What the hell was Whitworth doing? He lets Haloti Ngata go right past him without even touching him. You got the best player on the Ravens defense, one of the best defensive tackles, and Whitworth didn't even lay a hand on him. So Dalton's running what appears to be a naked bootleg or something, turns around and Ngata's in his face. And so I'm going to go back and blame that play on Andrew Whitworth and just a terrible, terrible job. And in fact, Whitworth hasn't been playing that well this year. It's kind of gone under the radar, but he's been having a very subpar year, and that just goes that's just par for the course this year with the way he's playing. I think Whitworth has escaped all responsibility for not blocking Ngata on that play.
Yeah, I mean the line play AC just in general they're not getting. And let's be fair. Let's give some credit to the Ravens defense, who we know we've seen it year in and year out is fantastic. But the line play, not just pass protection, but running the football as well, has been less than stellar.
Absolutely. I mean, Jeremy Hill had, I think, about 2.5 yards per carry on the day. I think Gio Bernard had about 2.8. And you look at that and you go, obviously that's not good, but you are facing the Ravens. But that's kind of been a little bit of a pattern. And there's been a lot of offensive linemen being pushed back into running lanes early on as the ball is given off, which is not good. You've had Kevin Zeitler miss a few games, and he's one of their mauler guys on the right side. Andre Smith, Scott's correct. Andrew Whitworth has not played his best football this year, but Andre Smith, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, probably 3 weeks if you want to go back to Carolina, he has played some terrible football. And usually he's good. He's good for 1 or 2 of those games per year, and he's strung about 3 in a row now where he's had multiple critical holding penalties. He's given up sacks, and then they're not running the football on top of that, which that right side, him and Kevin Zeitler, are kind of key to running that football. So I look at that. A lot of people like to pick on Russell Bodine, and he's a rookie, he's underachieving, whatever whatever some of those comments are, and I see some validity there, but I really look at the tackle play, and it's a wonder that Andy Dalton, especially through those first couple of weeks, hasn't been sacked more because of the play of Whitworth and Smith. And I like both of those guys, but, man, for 2 bookend tackles you have, they got to start playing some better football.
Yeah, I agree with you there, AC. I think there comes a time where some new ideas are needed on the offensive line. And we've seen kind of the same thing for the last 25 years. And, oh, by the way, that coincides with a certain coach of that offensive line. But that's, I guess, another topic for another day. All that matters at this point, guys, the Bengals are 2-0 against the Ravens this year, which is nice. They're still in first place in the AFC North by mere percentage points. I mean, I hate to be negative here and such a Debbie Downer, but they did win, and that's the good thing.
Totally, and I'm sure Scott has a thought on it, but we're kind of spoiled here following the Bengals, and we're sitting here complaining after they just swept the Ravens. We're talking about bad calls and this and that, and the bottom line is they swept the Ravens. They haven't done it since 2009, and Andy Dalton has never done it. So you can say that's a major positive step in Andy Dalton's career, the fact that he got a sweep against one of the AFC's best teams over the past, decade or more.
Not only that, he's got a 3-game winning streak against them.
Yeah. So, and they're not totally losing winning in spite of him, but he is making some quality plays, and you got to give him credit. He's won, like you said, Nick, 3 in a row, swept him this year, and that, to me, that game was just so critical to win. And I know it's midseason. I know they could go on a nice little run here with guys getting healthier and some of the easier teams, quote unquote, on their schedule, but I just thought that was a big game, and I don't know if Scott's got more to add.
Yeah, and I thought, when we talk about Dalton, we mentioned the fact that he was able to come back despite the mistakes and get the win. I just think it goes back to the way that Dalton is looked at, and I think it's pretty unfair. If the quarterback in that game was named Brady or Manning or Rodgers or any of the above, we look at that game and we say, wow, what a clutch quarterback he is, how gutsy he is making that quarterback sneak call, what a winner he is, the way he's able to come back from those mistakes and drive him down the field. Like, that guy's just an absolute winner. But when it's Dalton, everyone wants to just point to he's lucky. He's lucky. He wins because he's got so much talent around him. It's like the same thing happens with Dalton, and he's labeled as being lucky, whereas other guys, they're clutch, they're winners, etc. So I think it's just the reputation he has, and I think it's unfair. The guy's on pace for another 10 to 11 wins. His numbers aren't up like they have been in the past, but I mean, heck, look who he's missing. I mean, take a look at Peyton Manning. Take away Demaryius Thomas, take away Emmanuel Sanders, and take away Julius Thomas, because that's basically what Dalton's been without this year. And how good is Manning? What does he look like? So you know, the guy's been playing well. You know, the interception wasn't his fault. The fumble was a bad play, but half of that was Whitworth's fault. So I just think Dalton needs to get a little more credit and a little less blame than he gets.
Yeah, I don't know how that's a horse that we've been beating quite a bit as well here on this podcast. The Andy Dalton love-hate relationship here in the Queen City. Look, the big thing again, like we said, the Bengals are victorious over the Ravens. They're 2-0. They swept the Ravens this year, 4-2-1 on the year, with a home game this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, which we will preview here in just a second. Let's welcome in Fatal Content to the program. Fatal, what's up, dude?
Hey, what's going on, man? How's everything going with you guys?
Thanks for hanging on patiently there. I know you have a lot on your mind as far as what happened on Sunday.
Oh yeah, lots. I just wanted to start off with the current what you guys are talking about. I love the objectivity from you guys. You know, you're not blinded by being a Bengals fan. But man, if I didn't know you guys well and I was just listening, I'd say, man, these guys are. They're finding things to complain about in good times right now. Based on the situation that we're in, to be, 4-2-1, leading the possibly the most competitive division in the NFL, with these big injuries is pretty big. But I love the objectivity. You know, the O-line, I will say it struggled definitely against the Colts. Against the Colts, they looked like The Walking Dead. But
Yeah.
And definitely against the Patriots, but I mean everybody looked bad against the Patriots. But I will say, I mean, I don't remember calling anyone's name in that Ravens game except for Haloti Ngata, which he's just an all-world player. So I don't remember calling Suggs' name. I don't remember calling Dumerville's name.
Well,
I don't remember calling any of the other guy's name.
They said Dumerville's name quite a bit when Andre Smith kept man-hugging him every play.
Oh yeah. But aside from that, I mean, even on that last drive, Dalton was barely touched. They gave him enough protection to get things going in the last drive. So I mean, they're doing their thing when they need to. But yeah, it's the running game. It's puzzling to me, man. I don't know why we can't get it going. Maybe it's just maybe they're keying in on that, and we're just not getting a push. I don't understand what that deal is, but. I think a lot of that goes into just we don't do it enough. We don't push it down people's throat enough. So I put most of that on that.
Yeah, I think the problem too, and I know Anthony, you've been calling for Jeremy Hill for quite a bit. It's the way they're going about it. Running Gio Bernard in between the tackles is not ideal, but yet they continue to try to do it. And now here Bernard is injured. So I know you want to comment about that, AC.
Yeah, I think part of the issue is scheme fit and game plan for the running backs. I think, and I've been saying this, I've been on my little podium on this for the last few weeks. I think you make Jeremy Hill your primary back, kind of the guy that you give 15 to 25 carries per game, and you get Giovanni Bernard about 10 carries, maybe 5 to 10 pass attempts per game. I just think that works better as an offense. The other issue I see, and we're talking about the offensive linemen, I think you have Mahler, big, wide-bodied offensive linemen that maybe don't fit the type of scheme that Giovanni Bernard likes to run in. You know, I think they're kind of the one block. They don't get to the second level very well, and you know, if there's not a hole opened up, then it kind of collapses on them. I like this offensive line, but I don't love it. And now we're sitting here, we're going, well, they didn't run the ball well in the Jay Gruden era, and they're not running the ball now in Hugh Jackson era, which that was supposed to be his big emphasis. So now you got to kind of look at, well, maybe the personnel up front is a little bit of an issue. And you hate to say that because there's a lot of high picks there and some guys have played well over the years, but I don't know. In this division, you have to run the football, and I understand that there's some good defenses in this division, but at some point you got to look at this offensive line and say, okay, what's not working up front there? And is it the scheme with the talent level up front, or is it the talent level in general up front? I don't know.
You got anything to add there, Fatal?
Yeah. I just wanted to say, I I wanted to see why you guys thought he wasn't a good in between the tackle runner. I think he is. I think it's more so that they both need to split carries. If anything, I agree with Anthony with maybe instead of running Gio so much between the tackles, you need to use him maybe as kind of a scat back, even though that's offensive to him, but kind of use him in that sense on certain plays. And because I honestly think that if you think about it, him being nicked up had nothing to do with me, based on what I'm seeing, with him running in between the tackles. If you think about it, the one play he got his collarbone hurt, he was running outside, and he got chased down by Kuechly, and he landed awkwardly. The other time, he got blown up on the screen pass, and 2 times he got blown up on the screen pass.
Right.
And this week, I'm not quite sure what happened, but I mean, it's not like he's getting hurt running in between the tackles, and he ran between the tackles. I mean, like, albeit it's Carolina, they look bad, but I know you're gonna say, Nick, it was run, but it was a run between the tackles. So, I mean, I think he can run between the tackles. I just think, like you guys say, he's not that durable. So maybe you do need to split carries and maybe use him in the scat back form.
Yeah, let's not forget too. You know, that 89-yard touchdown run was between the tackles. I mean, he broke it between the tackles and made a good play. So I'm not saying that he can't do it. I just don't think it's ideal to do it 25 times, which I don't know. Maybe that's what we're all kind of wishful thinking here as far as the Bengals run game goes, and maybe that's just not ideal with the personnel they've got, Fatal.
Yeah, definitely, man. You guys hit it on the head. You guys always make great points, man. I just wanted to say that credit to the defense. I mean, they held Flacco to a 43.1 passer rating with 195 yards. They picked him twice with no TDs. And, you know, the offense scored 3 TDs on the NFL's best red zone defense and put up 27 on what I call possibly the best defense in the AFC at least. So I will say that kudos to them for that, man, that they have a lot of injuries, and we're going to miss Vontaze for the next few weeks, but the schedule works out perfectly for us not to really endure that much of a loss. So credit to you guys, and shout out to everyone in the chat room, man. Houday,
appreciate the call, Fatal.
Oh, no problem. Oh, you know what, man? I forgot. I'm an idiot. I had a question of the night, man.
Oh, bring it.
Taking every aspect of adversity injury-wise into account, what grade would you give each unit during the first eight games?
Whew. Do we have enough time for that tonight? So each position group you want a grade?
Yeah, just a quick grade. What you give it, and that's it.
So like offense, defense, and special teams?
Yeah.
All right. AC, start us off. Appreciate the call, Fatal.
All right, guys. Houday.
And of course, you have me start off, Nicholas. Oh man, I'm just kidding. All right. I don't know if we're going units or facets. I'll make it kind of brief and just kind of go units. I'll say offense, probably a B minus. I think they're efficient at times. I think they have problems getting into the end zone, and I think that there's been limited turnovers, but when they occur, they're pretty huge. So I'll give them a B minus. I'll give the defense, surprisingly, probably a C minus. I think the first 3 weeks they've been very solid. The last 3-4 games they have not shown up, and I think some of that is injury, some of that is scheme, and obviously higher quality opponents. So I'll give them a C minus. Special teams, I'll probably give them a C. I think Mike Nugent has been probably about a D player, and I think Kevin Huber has been probably an A minus type of player. So and I think they've done well. Aside from Kevin Huber punting, I think they've done well downing punts deep in opponents' territories, limiting some big plays on returns and things like that. So I guess you go B minus offense, C minus defense, and what I say, C minus special teams? Sure, yes. Let's do that.
All right. How about you, Scott? You're muted. You forgot you were muted. Gotta love that mute button.
Gotta watch out for the mute button. Pretty similar to Anthony. Gonna be a bit softer on the offense. I'd give the offense a B plus for the fact that if you take away that Indy game, I think they were ranked close to the top 10 in, or maybe in the top 10 in total offense, passing offense. And when you take into account what they're missing on the offensive side, I think that's very impressive. Defensively, I'm going to be a bit harsher. I'm going to give them a D because even in those first 3 games, their points per game were great, but they were still giving up a lot of yards to offenses that I don't think were very good. After those first 3 games, I think they ran into offenses that were able to capitalize on the yards they were giving up. So, I'm still very very iffy as far as this defense goes. They've looked better last week, but I'm going to give them a D so far because of what I expected of them at the start of the year. Special teams, a C, mainly just because Nugent's been so bad. I think all other aspects of special teams, from a punting standpoint, from a coverage standpoint, and even kick return standpoint, the Bengals have been, I think, above average. But Nugent's been so bad that I can't give the special teams more than a C.
I'm gonna go B- for the offense. I'm gonna go C- for the defense, just because of all the injuries they're dealing with at linebacker. I think they could be better up front. But special teams, I'm gonna go B, because I think if you consider what Huber has done this year from a punting perspective, he's gotten an A++ in my eyes, averaging 50 yards a punt. I think he had his first touchback just last weekend in Indy, and he has switched field position quite a bit for the Bengals. So he's been fantastic. And you take in the account that Mike Nugent, yes, has struggled on field goals, but kickoffs, they're okay. They haven't been gashed too bad on kickoffs. And the coverage has been pretty good as well. So I'll give the special teams a B, maybe a B-. But yeah, Nugent's got to get better at field goals. Let's go back to the jungle line. Appreciate you holding. Area code 410. Hi, who's this?
How you doing? This is Seth from Baltimore.
Hey, Seth from Baltimore. What's on your mind tonight?
How you doing, man? So we have the Jaguars coming up. Is that correct?
That's right. Jacksonville's coming to town.
Okay. Well, my projection, I marked that as a win, and also we play Cleveland. Now, talking about that Jacksonville game first. Do you see us? Blowing them out by like halftime? Do you think the game will be over by halftime, or do you think that's just going to be an AFC North type game, considering that Jacksonville actually have a good defense?
All right, Seth. Let me ask you this question: how often do the Bengals blow anybody out ever?
That's true.
It's pretty rare. I think the only blowouts I can think of off the top of my head, 2 in the recent years. 1 last year against the Jets, and 2 a couple years ago when the Bears came to town and the Bengals, Carson Palmer, I think that might have been 2009 as well.
Wasn't the Indianapolis game a blowout last year? Well, even though Andrew Luck was scoring touchdowns in garbage time.
All right, sure. Okay, either way, it's pretty rare. So I think Anthony and Scott would agree with me on this one. I don't see it being a blowout, but I don't think it's going to be something that I think that they can win comfortably, but I don't expect a 30-point or even a 21-point win.
Right.
There have been more, Nick, than you're giving credit for, but at the same token, there haven't been that many. You can think back to the Raiders game when Carson Palmer returned. That was kind of a blowout. There was a Chiefs game, I think, where Mohamed Sanu had a couple of touchdowns and things like that. So the last couple of years there's been some, but there hasn't been all that many. And you can even count some of the ones earlier this year. The Titans game and the Falcons game. Those were pretty out of hand pretty quickly. But that's when the Bengals, kind of had a lot of hands on deck. Yeah, they had a couple guys in and out of the lineup, but I think this Jaguars team it's a bad team, but I don't think it's as bad as it looks on paper, if that makes sense. I don't want to give away my prediction quite yet, but I do think it's probably going to be closer than people assume. The Bengals actually kind of traditionally struggle a little bit with rookie quarterbacks. I don't know if that's limited film study or what it is. I think I saw something that the Bengals are 12-10 under Marvin Lewis with rookie quarterbacks. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on, and I think Blake Bortles is going to be a good one. I still think this Jaguars team is a couple years away from being pretty decent, but I don't think we're going to see a 45-10 type of game if that's what we're asking here.
It's not too often either, Seth, that the Bengals games are over by halftime either. I mean, that's a whole different class of teams in the NFL. They're not the Patriots or the Broncos by any stretch of the means.
Yeah, I was looking at the fact that Blake Bortles has thrown, I think, 12 in picks, and he has 6 touchdowns, I think. And I think the disadvantage of him having to come to Cincinnati, where our defense is causing turnovers back and forth, I just think that by halftime, I think he's just going to throw the game away with like 2 pick sixes as my bold prediction.
Ooh, I like it.
Maybe one by Leon Hall, maybe one by Terrence Newman, maybe.
Awesome. Seth bringing the heat with some early bold predictions. I like it, Seth. Hey, appreciate the call, bud.
No problem.
Who day?
Who day?
That's Seth giving us a ring here on the Jungle Line. Area code 269. Hi, who's this?
Hey, Nick, this is Eric Oxley, Doc Ox. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doc Ox. What's up, bud?
Hey, just wanted to call in. Actually, you guys talked a little bit about what I was going to call in about tonight. Scott mentioning the good being Andy Dalton's play, Anthony's criticism of Hugh Jackson in the running game. And my thought is, Andy's played very, very well this year. I know he's had, a boneheaded play. But in my opinion, I'll go so far as to say Andy has overcome the play calling of Hugh to get us where we are and to get us, this odd 4-2-1 record. So I just feel like that, these pundits and people are so quick to be critical of Andy when he's brought us back against Baltimore in Week 1, brought us back multiple times against Carolina, a game that we all agreed we should have won. And then last week, calling the quarterback sneak. Sometimes I just feel like they, if you're not yelling Omaha at the line of scrimmage, you're not viewed as an elite quarterback or a good quarterback. So, I just want to get your thoughts if you think Andy is overcoming Hugh's questionable play calling and not using Hill more frequently.
Scott, you want to chime in on that?
The question was about using Hill more frequently and if that's hurt Dalton. Is that right?
Just the fact that Andy Dalton is overcoming Hugh Jackson's play calling.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I'm still going to give Hugh a bit of a pass on this so far, but just because, when he's drawn up his offense, he's drawing it up with Eifert in there, with Jones in there, and with Green in there, and we just haven't got to see this offense on the field together at the same time. So I think if you look at Week 1 where he had everyone but Jones, that offense was moving pretty good. Eifert was a big part of that, and they looked very good when Eifert was in there. Without Eifert and then without Green for a lot of these games, I think Hugh Jackson has had to come over some of Hugh Jackson as well because he just doesn't have the weapons. But to his point, I think he hasn't used Hill. I think he could use Hill better, and I think by using Hill better, it would help Dalton. Just any running game is going to help a quarterback. So that would be my response.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we should be using, Hill. Hill should be at his best in the third and fourth quarter. That's when he should be really warming up and wearing down. So I just gotta say that I've been disappointed in Hugh. I agree that he's been hamstrung, but you look at it, so has Andy, and we're so quick to be critical of Andy. And I guess last week we were, a bit on the soapbox about Hugh, but I'm just not seeing any optimism that Hugh is finally going to, run the ball. Maybe that's partly because of the offensive line, but I just hope that this game against the Jaguars, we can really establish that run early and pound it through all 4 quarters.
Well, I hope you're right, Doc. Hey, appreciate the call, bud.
Yes. Yes. Also, I got a quick request.
Okay.
I was thinking that one of the best segments in the off season is when you guys go through, the Bengals forecast, what you guys feel like the record is. I know time probably doesn't allow tonight, but maybe next week when we hit the midpoint, given the injuries that we have that you can't foresee heading into the season, maybe you guys want to revisit and give your updated forecast of what you guys predict with the upcoming games.
Ooh, sounds like a plan. We'll do that for next week, Doc. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sounds great. You guys have a good night.
You too. Who day? That's Doc on the Jungle Line giving us a ring. Doc Ox giving us a ring here on the podcast. I think Hugh Jackson, for what it's worth, he hasn't had a lot of his guys. I mean, you're right, Scott. He's gone into the year hoping to have A.J. Green for a full 16-game slate. No Marvin Jones at all. Tyler Eifert goes down on, the first drive, I think. So, yeah, he hasn't had his guys. But at the same time, you kind of got to scratch your head and think, what are you thinking? I don't know if you guys happened to catch that Steelers-Colts game on Sunday, but the Steelers managed to score 51 points on that vaunted Colts defense, and Ben Roethlisberger threw for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, what happened there? That's where I'm kind of going, well, how did this team manage no first downs in the first half and no points against this awful defense? That's where I'm just scratching my head.
I think part of it has to do with just overall matchups of teams. You know, I mean, I'm not an absolute, football scheming guru or anything like that, but, you know, I think the Colts are more of a straight line type of defense where they get you in a situation and, you know, if you have a guy that drops back, they'll get to you real quick and they'll sack you. And I think Ben Roethlisberger is a guy that can kind of avoid some of that stuff, and you have to get him down. And I think the Colts did a poor job of getting him down. There were numerous just vintage Ben Roethlisberger plays in that game where he danced around. He had on one touchdown pass, I believe, or one big pass, he had one guy kind of nipping at his feet, literally. He kind of kicked that guy off and threw a big pass for a completion. And I think that the Bengals offense, when they face the Colts, they don't have a quarterback that kind of can dance around pressure in the same way. Not a lot of teams have a quarterback that can do that. But I think their offensive game plan is just get the ball out quick and get it going, short pass, you know, do that. And I think the Colts had that locked down. They probably aren't a defense where their secondary can run around for a while, cover guys for a long time, and that's probably what you saw matchup-wise, Colts defense versus Steelers offense. But to Doc's point, there are some questionable moments of Hugh Jackson's offense, but there are moments of just, wow, that's creative. Getting Mohamed Sanu the ball in a different way, having him throw the ball. I don't know. There are things to like and things not to like, and Nick and Scott, you're both correct about just personnel issues because of injury, too, that have to be accounted for.
Yeah, and again, I'm not making excuses, and nobody is making excuses. Everybody's dealing with injuries throughout the NFL. I mean, that's what you got to do. In the meantime, though, the Bengals do have a game Sunday at Paul Brown Stadium as the Jacksonville Jaguars come to town. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Andy Dalton is 2-0 against the Jaguars in his short career. Both games on the road, though, in Jacksonville. So, Scott, the Jaguars. Wow, I can't speak. The Jaguars. What do we need to know about the Jags, and is Blake Bortles the real deal?
Well, I've been trading emails with the guy from Big Cat Country, SB Nation's Jaguar site, and I've been doing a little research on the Jaguars myself when trading questions. And this is a young team. Certainly on paper, it's a team that you take a look at and you think the Bengals would manhandle. Like you said, Nick, though, this is not a team that blows teams out. They seem to allow teams to hang around. And if they do that with the Jaguars, they could find themselves into some trouble because the Jaguars have some playmakers. Denard Robinson, the former QB from Michigan,
still haunts
is now he's now the running back. In the last 2 weeks, he's had over 100 yards running. Has looked very good. He's supplanted Toby Gerhart as their running back. They got a couple rookie wide receivers. The names escape me right now.
Short's the third.
Well, he's actually their top two. He's like number 3 as far as the receivers go. They have a guy, Alan Hearns, and Allen Robinson, I believe, are the names. And then they also drafted Marquise Lee early this year. So they've got some talented young guys in the receiving core. The defense they're decent. They're not a very good defense, but they're not terrible either. So, it's just one of those teams where the Bengals are better than the Jaguars, and they need to get on them early. If they let them stick around, like any team, they can make them pay. So, last thing, Bortles. I don't know about Bortles. I'm still up in the air with him. He does have 12 interceptions, like our caller earlier mentioned, 4 of which have been returned for touchdowns. he also has 3 fumbles and only 6 touchdowns. So if you took a look at that for an entire season, he's on pace for 32 picks, I think 8 fumbles and 16 touchdowns. That would not be very good. So he will force the ball. He will give the Bengals opportunities to get some turnovers.
And let's not forget, too, Jacksonville did beat the Browns, Anthony.
Yeah, that's right. That was a barn burner of a game. I mean, if you weren't tuning into Jacksonville and Cleveland, I don't know where you were, but both of those teams are actually pretty scrappy. All jokes aside, I mean, they don't have necessarily the star power of some of the teams or the actual deep rosters that some of the powerhouses in each conference have, but they fight hard. It's the NFL. Any given Sunday, I know that's kind of a tired motto, but it does ring true. And like I mentioned earlier, the Bengals do struggle at times with rookie quarterbacks. And Bortles will make a play that'll just absolutely torch a defense, and he'll make a play that'll kill his own team. So I think the Bengals need to take advantage of some of those quote-unquote rookie mistakes that he might make. Throwing a ball late to the sideline or late, across the field or whatever, and picking the ball off, stalling a drive, whatever it may be. And unfortunately for the Bengals, it sounds like they're going to be missing one of their best defensive players in this game.
Before we get to our score predictions and our bold predictions, let's go back to the Jungle Line, area code 314. Hi, who's this?
Hey, it's Antoine.
Antoine, what's up, dude?
Hey, what's going on, y'all? I had a couple of things. Firstly, I just want to talk about what AC was talking about earlier, how big this game was, how big this win was for us to win this game. And despite, it was a good game, barely won, but it's still needed that win. Seeing that everybody else in the division won, so if we would have lost that game, that really would have set us back. And it was a home game. So, yeah, that was a huge win. But also wanted to talk about, you guys touched on a lot of things this tonight, but there's also, I want to touch on a few more things. One of it was Mike Nugent. I know he didn't have an opportunity to even kick in the Indianapolis game, but I think this was a big game for him also. We needed both of his field goals. I was, trying to see how he's going to bounce back from that bad kick that he had back at the Panthers when we tied. So this was a good game. Got his confidence up, getting those 2 kicks in. Really needed those field goals. And also, how I feel about Jermaine Gresham. He's gonna kill us at some point. Maybe not in the regular season, but probably in the playoffs. You see at the end of that first half the way he's carrying the ball, and he does that all the time. I don't know the coaches. I don't know if they talk to him or he just doesn't listen, but carrying the ball like that, and we got the fumble back. Thankfully, but that could have killed us also because he's always carrying the ball like that. And come playoff time, you play good defenses like that, they're gonna strip the ball from you, and that can kill us.
I think he holds it like that on purpose so that he can't get traded. I'm teasing, of course, but no, you're right. Every time, and I still do this, Antoine. Every time the ball is thrown to him and he catches it, I hold my breath because you're right. He puts it on the ground all the time.
Yeah, it happens. I hold my breath too because I don't know why he doesn't change the way he does that, but it's going to kill us.
Yeah, luckily it didn't come back to haunt us on Sunday, and he was able to get the ball back. But yeah, you're right. It was. You hope that it doesn't rear its ugly head at the absolute worst possible time.
Right. Well, that's all I had, fellas. You guys touched on everything else, but that was it. And hope you have a good night and hooday.
All right, Antoine, appreciate the call. Talk to you on Sunday.
All right, hooday.
Hooday. It's time now for one of our favorite parts of the show. We do this each and every week.
Hey, ladies, quit your babbling, because now's the time in the show when all the boys pull out their cojones and make bold predictions.
All right, let's get bold. Are you ready to get bold? Mickey, who is not with us this week watching the World Series, his Royals He's predicting a bold prediction of 3 Sanu touchdowns this weekend. So he's getting us off with a bang. AC, I'll start with you. I like going to you first because I know I'm putting you on the spot here. Just give me a bold prediction for Sunday against the Jaguars.
Okay. I will say the Bengals get 4 interceptions from their defense on Sunday, 2 of which are of the pick 6 variety. And of those 4 interceptions, they are made by 3 different players.
That is very in-depth.
That's very specific. I got very specific for you, buddy.
Missing there is the actual names of the players making.
Yeah, I know. I could give you jersey numbers. I could give you years experience. I mean, what else do you need?
Just as long as it's not jock size. That's we don't need that. Scott, bold predictions for this week.
I'm going to say that Andy Dalton starts getting his numbers back in line, throws 4 touchdowns this weekend. 4
TDs, which is very in line with what Mickey thinks. He's saying Mohamed Sanu gets 3 touchdowns on Sunday. If I'm going to go for a bold prediction, I think this is bold because he hasn't played very much. A.J. Green has 100 yards receiving. Because there are still some questions about whether or not he's going to play. So that's why I think that makes it bold. I think if he does play, he could have a pretty good day against this Jaguars defense. So my bold prediction is that A.J. gets 100 yards on Sunday. Looking at some of the bold predictions here in the chat room, Fatal Constant says 45-10, Bengals win, 7 points come in garbage time by Jaguars. Doc Ox, AJ plays this week. That's his bold prediction, so there you go. Lord Funkington, he's giving a 42-14 score prediction. Pale, bold prediction, Whitworth gets in a scrum with a Jags D lineman. Brett Bradford, Denard Robinson has been running pretty well these last few weeks. What's our biggest weakness on defense? Stopping the run could help keep the game close. Moss, Dalton 7 touchdown passes. He's going one step further. That would be pretty nice. Doc Ox is also adding 3 touchdown catches by Dalton. I don't see that happening, but I guess you never know with Hugh Jackson's offense. Lord's also saying Dalton with 3 INTs and a fumble. I don't like that bold prediction, but he does say 5 touchdown passes, so okay. Mark Young, Hill coming out party, 2 touchdowns on 125 yards rushing and 40 yards receiving. I like that bold prediction, guys. That would be if Hill is able to do that, Anthony, that is a win.
That's what the game plan should be this week, is just pound the ball, just control the clock. You're at home, keep the streak alive of winning the consecutive games, and that should be a no-brainer, and then set up play action from there, and hopefully kind of get the offense rolling that way instead of maybe a little bit of vice versa.
Before we get to our score predictions, let's open up the jungle line one more time. Area code 859. Hi, who's this?
Yay, Nick. Dougie. I'll tell you what, I do think we beat Jacksonville soundly this weekend. I don't know what we're going to do after that next week against Cleveland. I'm really looking forward to that game. I think it's going to be a good game.
I'm not looking forward to that Cleveland game at all. Short week, not good. I'm not feeling good about that game, but that's just my own opinion.
No. And that's why it'll be a good game. It'll be a knockdown, drag-out game. So it ought to really be good. I think both teams are really going to go at it because I think they're both pretty evenly matched, to be honest.
All right, fair enough. But you think Sunday's a blowout against Jacksonville?
Yeah. I think they beat Jacksonville pretty soundly. But the next weekend against the Browns and Paul Brown, that's the game I'm looking forward to. So anyway, hey, I know it's a little bit late. It's nearing the end of the podcast, but I just wanted to get my 2 cents worth in, whatever that's worth. And I will be looking forward to you talking to you this Sunday, Nick, on the postgame show.
Hey, John, appreciate the call. Your cents are always welcome here, man. Appreciate the call.
All right, man.
Who day. Safe travels, John. Score predictions, Anthony Cosenza.
Hey. Well, I said 2 pick sixes, so there's 14 there.
I'm going to go logically here. I like it. Okay.
I'll say 27-17 Bengals.
Mickey says 27-16 Bengals.
Okay. I think I was pretty close last week. I think it was, 24-21 maybe, or 24-20, I think. So, I was pretty close. I hope I'm close this week, though I wish it would be a lot further, a lot bigger of a blowout. But I think something like that.
27-17 for AC. Mickey says 27-16. So, Scott, you're going 27-15, right?
Well, not far off. I actually made my prediction earlier today at 27-13. So it sounds like we're all pretty much in the same ballpark.
Very consistent, huh? Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Andy Dalton in years past has played pretty well against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and those were road games. Now he's playing this team at home, and I'm sure Blake Bortles isn't probably is probably not the best quarterback on the road at the moment. So you know what? I'm going to go big. I think the Bengals get over 40 this week. So I'm going to go bold as well. I think they put up over 40, and I think they give up quite a few points. So I'll say 42-24 Bengals. That's my score prediction this week. If you want to get in touch with us, feel free. Inside the Jungle at SPNT.TV. Give me your bold predictions and your score predictions. And hey, if you want to shout out here on the podcast, get in touch with me on Twitter as well, at Nick Suberling. Let's do some shout-outs. Who are you going to give a shout-out to this week, Scott?
I'm giving a Mickey Menster special backhanded shout-out this week to some bum over at Bleacher Report that wrote an article this week on the stale Dalton bashing. Despite win, Andy Dalton proves once again that Bengals can't trust QB. It's just the same. It's the same stale argument. It's like the argument a couple years ago where everyone said the Bengals were the team that always got arrested and always were the convicts, and it was just not true. And the Andy Dalton bashing is just stale. It's inaccurate. It's just lazy reporting. So a backhanded shout out to Christopher Knox over at Bleacher Report with that terrible article.
All right. Before I get to UAC, I'm going to give out some of these predictions, some of these score predictions here in the chat room. Chase Delee says 31-14, good guys. Fatal content, bold prediction. Tate has 200 yards receiving. That's funny. But he does think Little has 100 yards as a Bengal this week. That's a good one. AC shoutouts.
Yeah, I mean we gotta kind of knock Bleacher Report down a few pegs because they are a heated rival of SB Nation. So Scott, that's a great shout out. We got to knock them down a few pegs every time we can, even though they do some good work over there. I will shout out Frank Leonard. He's a great Twitter conversationalist with all of us on the show, especially during games. Frank Leonard's a great guy. Got to shout out Antoine, who called in. He is an ardent caller of the show almost every week and really enjoy his takes. And I got to also shout out, Nick, I listened to the postgame show. The guy who predicted the Bengals to go 3-13, Chris from Dayton, he called in and he was excited about the win. He kind of ate a little bit of crow, and he owned it a little bit. So those are my three.
That's a good one because I think he said if the Bengals won 4 games or more, he would eat his boot.
Yeah, I was going to say, doesn't he have to eat his shoe or something?
No, that's the Dre bet. That's the Dre Kirkpatrick bet.
Okay.
Remember, it was something about if Dre had 5 picks or Mickey bet him something. I don't know. We can review the tape. I don't know, but I think it was more on the Dre Kirkpatrick stuff, not so much the wins. But yeah, he you know what? He showed up. He showed up and he owned it a little bit, and he was pretty stoked on the win. So I had to give him a little bit of a tip of the cap.
Chris from Dayton. I see that number pull up on my caller ID, and I know what I'm in for. We appreciate. I love when he calls in though. He brings it. He's passionate. You can't deny that. I'm going to give a couple shout-outs this week. First and foremost, Martin Croson across the pond. If I'm saying Croson or Crowson, if I'm getting that wrong, Martin, I apologize. He's over in Leicester, over in England. Leicester. It's spelled Leicester or Leicester. I don't even know what you call it, but they say Leicester over in England. So shout-out to Martin. Also going to give a shout-out to Joe Casaro. He says on Twitter, miss being able to join you guys. Love the podcast. And then Christopher Hahn says, I travel for a living, but I get all my Bengals information from the great podcast, Who Dey. So that's my shout-outs this week. Chris Hahn, Joe Casero, and Martin Croson. If you want a shout-out here on the podcast, just send me a tweet, at Nick Serberling. You can also follow my tag team partners here. Anthony, where can they follow you on Twitter?
At CJ Anthony CUI.
And where can they follow you, Scott Bantel?
At Scott Bantel.
Fantastic. You guys got big plans for Halloween this weekend?
I'm following Dorothy around the neighborhood. Dorothy, no, I'm not a pedophile. Dorothy will be. My daughter will be dressed as. My daughter will be dressed as Dorothy, so I will be following her around the neighborhood.
Fantastic. How about you, AC? I know you don't have any kids, but
I don't even know how to top that one. Yeah, I won't be a pedophile either, so I'll throw that out there. I do not have any kids, so I won't be following around my own kids, but might kind of hang out, give some candy out in my new neighborhood. Some of you know I moved into a new house. Might do that for a little bit and then hang out with some friends a little later in the evening. I want to know what you guys are dressing up as, though.
I am the Uncle Scrooge of Halloween. You can't stand this holiday, first and foremost.
Okay.
However, my daughter's going out as some kind of monster, but my son is going as AJ Green. He's got a Bengals helmet. He's
there you
got
go.
a jersey with number 18 on the back that we ironed on, shoulder pads, all that jazz. So yeah, he's keeping it in the family and going out as AJ Green for Halloween.
Nice. Scotty?
Nick, that's weak. Being a grouch. How can someone not like Halloween? This is my favorite holiday. I'm upset though to say I've officially become old because this is the first year I don't have a party to go to, so I actually won't be dressing up. But I do have an awesome Ron Burgundy outfit that just for shits and giggles I may have to bust out.
All right.
Yeah, family show.
Yeah.
I might be Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. That I'm trying to piece together something from that. So I don't know if you guys watch that show or not, but
I don't.
Yeah, that might be mine.
Solid. Well, I hope you guys have a good Halloween. I hope you guys
You too.
have fun this weekend, and that you more importantly enjoy the game on Sunday. Hopefully the Bengals pulled out a big win. Big thanks to everybody who's tuned in live here at CincyJungle.com. Again, thank you for everybody who goes out and downloads the show as well. Your reviews on iTunes. And yet again, I have failed you. I said I would announce and read some of those reviews, and yet again, another week goes by and I forget to collect those reviews because I'm just an awesome host. What can I say? Thank you, though, for everybody who's gone on to the iTunes store and left feedback about the podcast. Really do appreciate all the kind words. It's really, really tremendous. So thank you for doing that. Also, a big thank you to everybody who's gone out and supported the show on our Patreon campaign, spnt.tv/Patreon. If you're a patron, you may have noticed there was an announcement about the podcast this week and some future plans and things in store for the show. If you want more information or more details about what's going on with this podcast, go become a patron over at spnt.tv/Patreon. You'll find out more details there. Appreciate everybody's support, though, and again, thank you for everybody downloading the podcast, whether it be on Stitcher Smart Radio, TuneIn, the podcast app on iTunes, Pocket Casts, whichever podcast app you use. Thank you for your support in downloading the podcast. I think it's about time we wrap things up. Again, I can't thank you enough, everybody, for downloading the show. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Really do appreciate it. I have to always make sure I thank our associate producers of this podcast, Andy Lanham, Larry Rolson, Mike Vardy, and Chris Setters. Inside the Jungle's an SPNT production. For more information about the other podcasts, log on to SPNT.tv. If you want more information about the Bengals, check us out at CincyJungle.com. I'll be live following the game Sunday. Let's beat the Jaguars. Who Dey!
Who Dey!